14 years old, VanZant says she was sexually assaulted at a party.
There was a time when Paige VanZant was one of the most talked about fighters on the planet. From a massive social media following and getting lucrative sponsorship deals, she was poised to be the next big thing in MMA. But what happened to VanZant? Where is she now, and why is she not as active as before?
I'm awesome. Thank you for the amazing intro. I always love it.
Today, we will go into the sad story of this MMA superstar.
I'm not worried necessarily about the future anymore.
From her childhood history of abuse and bullying to her dramatic fall in the rankings.
When you're feeling that much pain, just don't want to be in pain anymore.
Born in Dundee, Oregon, and raised in Sherwood, Oregon, VanZant was brought up in a dance studio owned by her parents. She spent over 13 years dancing ballet, jazz, and hip-hop. Despite her girly upbringing, she was a tomboy who loved the outdoors, engaging in activities like riding dirt bikes and fishing. While she didn't have the same foundation for MMA as others, the agility and quickness she gained from dancing and hip-hop translated incredibly well into her MMA skill set. From her quirky smile and her always cheerful personality, VanZant might not look like she had a rough childhood, but behind that quirky smile, she hides a trauma that would break anyone. In her autobiography, Rise: Surviving the Fight of My Life, she admitted that when she was just 14, she was taken advantage of by some of her male classmates after they got her drunk at a high school party. Despite suffering agonizing injuries like a broken arm mid-fight in her MMA career, VanZant stressed that the emotional pain she went through a decade ago was far worse than the agony any injury her opponent could ever inflict on her. She offers a bleak and unflinching account of the event in her book. As a cheerleader who did well academically and was sporty, she was picked on or shunned by other girls. She described how once, when a boy showed interest in her and invited her bowling with his friends, she enjoyed the rare glow of positive attention. Later that night, the boy texted her an invitation to hang out with them. Paige, not wanting to lose her new friends, made the mistake of sneaking out and going to the boy's house. There, she found herself alone with the guy and a gang of his friends. She says they plied her with drinks, despite her protesting and crying, and when she was too drunk to defend herself, they sexually abused her, one after another. She says her torment after being sexually abused was deepened by the fact she felt too ashamed to tell her parents or anyone else what had happened for a long time. She was also threatened the day after the rape by the boy who had texted her, saying they made a video of her and blackmailing her into not telling anyone. Despite being intoxicated, she knew she had been taken advantage of repeatedly, recalling how, despite the fuzziness of the details, from the waist down, I felt like one giant bruise. Rumors circulated around the school, and soon she heard abuses and taunts being hissed at her. The fact her surname then was Sletton didn't help either, with kids calling her Slutton every opportunity they got. The bullying became so bad that she was forced to relocate to Reno with her family. Her mother suggested she even change her name, and that's when Paige Sletton became the Paige VanZant we know today. Slowly, painfully, VanZant opened up about what happened that one unfortunate night. She told her first boyfriend and then a counselor about the entire situation and how she was abused. They helped her return to Oregon to report the incident. Telling the story was hard for VanZant, but the rise of the #MeToo movement made her feel less alone, and she gained the courage to speak up. She said, "It was amazing it started right before my book came out. So I felt huge support, and that I wasn't doing this by myself. It felt liberating to get the story out, but the pain doesn't just go away. It's also a hard lesson to learn it's not your fault in these circumstances. I want to change that stigma. I want women to feel confident to speak up. If I had found my voice before that night, then none of this would have happened." The incident was one of the reasons why VanZant got into the sport of MMA. She wanted to learn how to protect herself. She didn't want to feel helpless anymore. This was the intention when she joined Ken Shamrock's Lion's Den gym. But what started as a necessity turned into a passion. The gym and its coaches sparked her love for boxing and grappling. Her amateur debut came in 2012 against Morgan Hunter, and this marked the beginning of an impressive amateur career.
Still has her chin, well, that's it. What a debut for Paige VanZant.
She would then soon turn pro, moving through smaller events in Texas and Colorado before a brief stop in Invicta. Despite suffering her first career loss to Tisha Torres, VanZant's age, appearance, and scrappy fighting style caught the eye of the UFC. So even after the loss, at just 20 years old, she became one of the first signees for the new strawweight division. VanZant's signing stirred controversy, especially when she secured an individual endorsement deal with Reebok, making her one of the 6 fighters to receive such an honor. Dana White attributed it to her "it factor," but whispers of favoritism circulated. More controversy followed when a social media post started circulating where she promised to shave her head for a children's cancer charity if she ever got into the UFC. But after getting into the promotion, she decided not to go through with her promise. Despite the controversies, VanZant silenced her critics with a remarkable performance against Kailin Curran at Fight Night Austin. The back-and-forth brawl showcased her skills, earning her Fight of the Night honors. This victory, followed by a decision win over Felice Herrig, silenced the critics for a bit and proved she was more than just a pretty face. Around the same time, Sage Northcutt also entered the UFC, and together, these young, promising stars were dubbed MMA's Ken and Barbie. The hype surrounding both fighters led to VanZant's first pay-per-view slot against Alex Chambers at UFC 191, where she showcased her skills and submitted her opponent with an arm bar. Little would she know this would be the height of her career in the UFC. In her first ever UFC main event, she went against Rose Namajunas. Despite Namajunas coming off a win, VanZant was considered the favorite. However, the fight turned out to be one of the most lopsided main events in UFC history. Namajunas dominated, ultimately finishing VanZant with a rear naked choke in the 5th round. With a broken VanZant showing her emotions in the post-fight press conference, she acknowledged the learning curve and the challenges ahead. The plan to make her and Sage Northcutt the next MMA Rousey and McGregor faded, as Northcutt also suffered a high-profile loss a month later. While her chances to win the strawweight title dwindled, her star rose. She appeared surprisedly on the reality show Dancing with the Stars in 2016. The reality show kept her in the headlines and sparked fresh interest in her. When she returned to the octagon against Bec Rawlings at Fight Night Vancouver, Paige showcased a different fighting style, opting for dynamic kicks and spins. The match, filled with jumping and spinning kicks, earned Paige a Performance of the Night bonus. This victory reignited interest in the young fighter. With her mainstream popularity still soaring, the UFC saw an opportunity to rebrand Paige VanZant. After all, despite not being the best fighter in her division, she was the most marketable fighter in her division. A year after her tough loss to Namajunas, Paige returned to the main event scene against Michelle Waterson. The build-up was filled with dancing and joking, attracting TV ratings but failing to convince hardcore fans of their worthiness. Paige spent the second half of her tenure as an attraction fighter, drawing in casual viewers but struggling for legitimacy. An attempt to revive her career at flyweight faced a setback with a unanimous decision loss to Jessica Rose Clark, during which Paige broke her arm early in the 2nd round. Injuries became a defining part of Paige's later years, limiting her to 3 fights over the next 4 years. Complications from her fractured arm led Paige to undergo surgery during her time away from the sport. During that time, she became a vocal critic of the UFC's pay structure, highlighting gender pay disparities. Despite showing glimpses of her old self in a fight with Rachel Ostovich, it seemed too little, too late. In a back-and-forth struggle, Paige faced challenges in the ring and with the promotion. Her form, injuries, and criticism left the UFC unwilling to renew her contract. Like Sage Northcutt, Paige's UFC journey ended on a lackluster note at UFC 251. Formally entering free agency, Paige had various options, including joining Bellator or exploring a deal with One Championship. However, after seeing what happened to her good friend Sage Northcutt in One FC, she opted out of the deal. Paige signed a $1 million deal with the Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship, in a move no one saw coming. This caught everyone off guard as Paige was not well known for her striking abilities. Her debut, unfortunately, ended in a loss, but Paige remains committed to restarting her MMA career and has even teased a return to bare knuckle in the future. Despite all the struggles in her career, VanZant found her happily ever after in 2017 when she began dating MMA fighter and former amateur wrestler Austin Vanderford. Their love story unfolded, leading to engagement in January 2018. Surprising fans, Paige revealed they had quietly tied the knot by sharing wedding photos on Twitter. Captioning the tweet with Mrs. Vanderford, the picture showed Paige looking radiant in a beautiful white dress. Even though her MMA career is on the back burner for now, the controversies surrounding VanZant keep on coming, and fans have started to find new ways to hate the MMA superstar. Despite her over 3 million followers on Instagram, Paige revealed she struggles with negativity on her social media. She faces a barrage of hate comments on her every post. The hate became especially brutal after she started co-hosting a podcast with her husband Austin Vanderford. Despite all the hate, she still tries to stay positive and calls her haters the best haters in the world. Even with all the hate she receives, one thing is undeniable. Paige VanZant is a fighter through and through. Paige has proven to be a fighter's fighter, whether it be her incredible show of grittiness inside the octagon or outside.